Every great leader has to find the balance between wanting a really high performance, high output team without pushing them so hard that we risk them burning out. So in this video, I want to break down the real secrets of burnout and how we as leaders can drive high levels of sustainable performance from ourselves and from our team without ever risking burnout. The goal of this is that you get to set higher targets, hit them faster with fewer people doing more work. And you get to do all of that without burnout and in a way that maximizes you and your company's profitability. So let's go ahead and dive into this. The first thing that we need to understand about burnout is that it's actually not about time. It's not about how many hours people work. Way more often, what it comes down to is actually energy. It's not how hard are people working, it's what are they working on. Because here's the truth. When people are absolutely fired up, working on things that they deeply care about, towards a mission that they are absolutely passionate about, and in a way that lights them up and allows them to grow, they will work extremely hard and they will be happy to do so. They will work late into the night. They will work on weekends and they won't even notice it because they are so happy, so engaged, so in flow that the work is deeply fulfilling and it energizes them. So on the flip side, are they spending their hours doing low value work that really drains them, that they don't understand why it's important or how it's going to help them or the business grow, surrounded by people that they don't think are working as hard as them, or managed by a boss that they don't think appreciates them or is taking advantage of them? That is what causes burnout. Very rarely is it that we're working our team so hard that they literally don't have more to give us. So if we're going to fix this problem, let's focus on energy. How is our team spending their time? Not just how many hours are they putting in. So let's talk about exactly how we do that. In order for our team to avoid burnout, they need a couple of things from us, the leaders. The first thing they need, a clear and realistic set of priorities. So fun fact about the word priority, in the original Latin root, there is no plural. There is no such thing as priorities, because the second that you have more than one, you have ruined the whole concept of what a priority is. Priority is the one, the single most important thing that must get done. Now, in today's busy modern world, we try and have like 10 priorities. And the result of that is that we actually have none. So we keep coming up with ideas, wanting to do new things, wanting to move faster. We delegate that down to our team, and our team is left feeling overwhelmed, stretched way too thin, pulled in way too many directions, because in their mind, all of those things are equally important. They lack context around what is the most important work that needs to get done for their role, for today, for this month, for this quarter. And they are actually not the right people to figure that out. We as leaders are the only people who have all the context and all of the vision to decide this is the most important thing. This over here is absolutely urgent, important, needs to get done now. These other things, the things we put on the priorities list, are important, but they are either less important, they're less urgent, or if we're being really honest with ourselves, they're simply nice to have. Like, I'd love to have this, but it's a nice to have, not a need to have. Remember that your team sees you as an inspiring leader. They want to do every single thing that you throw at them. So we have to be really conscious from our end that as we're delegating things out, we are also adding the context around where these tasks should fall on their priority list. So instead of just saying, hey, can you get this done? Saying, hey, can you get this done by this date? Hey, can you get this done? But it's lower on the list than this thing over here. Maybe it's really important in which we can say, hey, can you get this thing done? And what else do you need to take off of your plate in order to make room for this new priority that absolutely needs to get done? So we are actually the people responsible for managing the priority list of our team. They don't have the context and the vision that you have to know what is most important, but they're going to try and deliver on absolutely everything that you give them, which means we have to be conscious around how much are we delegating, how quickly, and what truly is the highest priority. We have to be willing to accept that our team may not get all 10 things done, but they're going to get the most important 2 things done. They're going to get them done on time, and then they're going to be able to pull in the next 2 priorities and the next. The reality is that when we try and get 10 things done, we probably don't do any of them. Like, none of them actually get complete, or they don't get complete well. Your company will actually grow faster and easier once we as leaders can learn how to discern what the actual highest priorities are, and then with that, accept that means the things on our nice to have list, the things that are important but not urgent, the things that would be huge but can wait until next quarter, these things may not all get done at once. But the most important work will, and we're going to set our team up with the clarity around what success looks like every single day so they can put their head down and they can drive towards it. And in that working model, your team, ironically, will actually get more done. So great, they're working on fewer things. That's number one. They also need to be working on the right things. So most often, if you're worried your team's at risk of burning out, what you're going to see is that they're either going to disengage, quiet quit, maybe actually quit, or they'll start coming to you and saying things like, I'm really overwhelmed. So what's happening when your team comes to you and says, I'm really overwhelmed? What I want you to reinterpret that as is, I'm really disorganized. Most often, overwhelm comes from chaos. Like there's actually a totally manageable level of work that needs to be done, but the way in which they're doing it, or all the various things that they are doing, are pulling them in a million directions, making them feel like they're running around every single day just trying to pick up dropped balls or track information down or uncross wires. And all of that is overwhelming. But the work itself, the amount of value add work that needs to get done, that's not the problem. And I know this because I've seen it firsthand. So my very first role as a COO, I was managing a team of like 20, 25 people for a digital marketing agency. And I had 2 client success managers. Now I was coaching other agencies at the time, so I knew that the average client success manager at the average agency was managing between 30 to 40 clients each. By the time I was done, my client success managers were managing between 80 and 110 client accounts each. Why? Not because they were working any harder. My guys were putting in 35, 40-hour working weeks, but because they were working smarter. What I did is I asked myself the question, what is the most important, most valuable work that this role does for my business, right? So for sales, that's hopping on a call, that's closing. For client success managers, that's hopping on a call with a client and upselling them or retaining them or delivering an exceptional client experience. What is the most important work that this role does for my business that actually connects to the money pipeline and drives value? Great. Now, what is everything else that they are currently having to do? What are all of the meetings they have to sit in on? What are all of the Slack messages that they have to send to try and track down information? What is all the frustrating admin work that they have to do that they don't want to do? What is everything else that is keeping them really busy, really overwhelmed, but is fundamentally not driving growth to the business, not providing value for our company and for our clients? We get to take all of those things and then we organize it. And this is where operations comes in. We build in the right systems. We build in the right communication and meetings. We take all of that busy work off their plate. We clean up our client information so that there are less client fires and less dropped balls and less crossed wires. We take all of this stuff that is actually non-essential work, just busy work, and we figure out how to downsize it, streamline it, or get it off our team's plate entirely. So now when they show up, they might be working just as hard as ever. They're putting in the same amount of hours, but their perception of that work is that it's way more organized, it's way more value add. They're doing the work that they actually care about, are actually good at, and that they know is creating a meaningful impact for the business, for the clients, and for the team. If all your team has to do all day, every day is that, I promise you they are not at risk of burning out. In fact, you're going to see higher levels of engagement, buy-in, and retention. They might even work harder. My team regularly carves out their own time to work on the weekends or to work late into the night or to listen to a podcast or read a book in their free time that's going to help them get better at their jobs. They do that without me asking. I've never once asked them to do that. And they do it because the nature of the work that they do excites them, lights them up, and feels fulfilling. So my team is the furthest thing away from burnout, even if they might be putting in more hours than the average team that is at risk of burnout. Because again, burnout doesn't come down to time, it comes down to energy. And the best thing that we can do for our team is do an energy audit of what are all of the things that frustrate them, drain them from just sloppy systems, sloppy data, sloppy meetings, and how can we clean that up so that they are more effective? And the good news about doing this is that it has huge financial upside for you. So back to my examples with my client success managers, my competitors had to build a team that was 2 to 3x the size of mine to get the same amount of work done. In comparison, my team saved me on average something like $160,000 every single year, because that was the cost of the salaries that I never had to pay out, the cost of hires that I never had to make, because my team was more productive and more effective. And that 160 grand dropped straight to the bottom line in the form of more profit. So my company got to grow faster, more profitably, with happier team members. And I got to manage fewer people who were just performing better. And all of that came through optimizing for their energy, not optimizing for their time. And this is why ultimately operations, more than anything else, drives profit. When we have the right team, the right systems, the right data, our company actually becomes more profitable, because all that busy work, all those extra people, that's stuff that you still have to pay for just to get the same amount of work done. So disorganization, let alone burnout, is exceptionally costly to our business, and it eats directly into our profit. This is one of the main areas that we help our clients uncover what we call hidden profit. Where is their profit already being created in their business that they can't take off the table because that profit is either hiding or it's being lost through small, fixable inefficiencies in their systems and in their team. So team is actually only one of 6 core pillars that we look at, 6 hidden profit centers that might exist inside of your business. We have a tool that we call the Hidden Profit Finder, and it will actually go through all 6 pillars and help you identify, where am I losing the most hidden profit, and what can I do immediately to start to find and reclaim that profit back into my business. So this tool is entirely free. It takes 5 minutes or less. You can grab a copy of it in the link in the description below, and that's going to help you find not just the hidden profit center inside of your team, but elsewhere inside of your business. Okay, so we've talked about 2 ways that we need to optimize energy. We can do that through priorities and organization, what they're working on. We can also do that by optimizing how and when the work gets done. So there's this concept called neuroswitching, which is essentially every time your brain needs to switch tracks from one thing to the other thing, it loses a little bit of efficiency. So every time you have to go from answering a Slack message to hopping on a client call to getting back to that email to making yourself lunch to checking Slack again and answering 5 more messages, every single time your brain has to switch, it loses efficiency. Now that doesn't sound like too big of a deal, but because we exist in such a distraction-filled, fast-moving modern environment, studies actually show that teams on average lose up to 28% of their total time and total productivity just to neuroswitching. That is time and energy that is just gone, being spent, bouncing around, going from one thing to the next. This is true of your team. This is also true of you. So 28%, that is the equivalent of a full working quarter. Like just by eliminating neuroswitching, I could wave a magic wand and give you a full working quarter back in your year. A full quarter to drive growth, drive revenue, hit your goals, do more things. A full working quarter for free. How much more growth, how much more money, how much more profit would you make with an extra quarter? That's what we earn back when we organize our team's time. So how do we eliminate neuroswitching? Doing it 100% is a little bit unrealistic in today's society, but there's a couple of things that we can do. The first thing that I recommend you and every single member of your team do is called time blocking. Let's take all of the things that we do over the course of the day where we're wearing a single hat, right? Maybe that hat is talking to clients or hopping on sales calls or team meetings. And we're going to take all the times that we do that throughout the day and we're going to put them together. So now if I'm hopping on team meetings, if I'm in my team meeting mode, I can stay in that mode without having to neuro switch into other things. I can knock that out in 2 hours, and then all my meetings are done. I can switch once and then switch into this other lane, do this other thing for 2 hours, switch again. So instead of having to bounce around and wear all these different hats all the time, which is really inefficient, through time blocking, we can clump and cluster, and just doing that creates enormous productivity and efficiency gains. It also energetically feels way less overwhelming. All of a sudden, I'm not bouncing around, jumping around, trying to keep track of 100 different things. Again, that's what causes chaos, overwhelm, and ultimately burnout. Instead, I can very calmly switch from one thing to the next. And not only is that going to allow me to be more productive and more effective at that thing, because I'm actually able to dig in and focus on it, I am going to feel less overwhelmed and less burnt out in the process. So time blocking, that's tactical hack number 1. The second tactical hack is what I call deep work time. So deep work time is when you give yourself permission for a 2 or 3 hour block of time, same time, every single week when you are at your most productive, your most creative, and that is your deep work time. And during deep work time, there are no team meetings, there are no Slack notifications. You turn that off. You turn off email, you turn off Instagram. Your deep work time is your time to drop in to your highest value work, into your flow state, and knock out that deep, crunchy, creative work that is really going to move the needle on your business. The concept of deep work time, when I explain that to entrepreneurs, makes sense because they're like, yeah, I've got all these things that I would love to get done if I just had more time to do it. Great. Now that we've freed up all this time through time blocking, we have just magically created enough time that can be pulled together into a deep work time block. You can get that done every week. But the thing is that your team also has deep work. Anybody in a leadership or creative or strategic role has deep work that needs to get done, and they will benefit from this just as much as you. So it might take some optimizing of calendars to get everybody organized to the point that people can take deep work without missing a meeting with somebody else. But if everyone on your team has between 2 to 4 hours a week, like by the end of this month, if everyone on your team had between 2 to 4 hours a week to really drop in a distraction-free zone and get the most important work done. And then they're clear because we've set clear priorities on what that most important work is. And it's the most valuable work that they find the most fulfilling and is going to move the needle in the business the most. In that environment, is your team overwhelmed? Is your team burnt out? Hell no. They are lit up, excited, crushing through their goals, getting there faster and more effectively. Not by working less or doing less, but just by reorganizing how work gets done. Okay, a final point, which is that at no point in this entire video have you heard me talking about compensation. I talk to a lot of founders whose belief around work is that if I just pay my people more, they will work harder. If I pay my people more, I can justify asking them to work longer. The truth is, above a certain level of fair compensation, paying people more does not produce a higher level of performance. Paying someone an extra 10 grand is not what's actually going to motivate them to show up and work on the weekends or be excited about working late into the night. Compensation does not create motivation. It cannot create motivation where motivation does not already exist. Compensation simply directs motivation. It says, hey, you're already running and you're excited to run. Run this way. But when it comes to creating motivation, and again, creating that energy state from which people will show up, work hard, perform at their hardest, and do so without the risk of burnout, it doesn't come from paying them more. Pay them fairly, to be clear. Pay your team well, pay them fairly. They're working really hard, give them what they're worth. But don't rely on compensation as what justifies you overworking them. People will show up and give you their all for one reason and one reason only. People will work on weekends. They will work late into the night. They will show up and generate new ideas and be the highest performing A players you've ever seen in your life for one reason and exactly one reason. They want to. They are intrinsically motivated to show up and give their all. They are intrinsically motivated to learn more and grow and become better in their work and in their role. They are intrinsically, from within them, motivated to do their absolute best and work their absolute hardest. The thing about intrinsic motivation is that it comes from within us, intrinsic motivation. As separate from extrinsic motivation is compensation, is promotions, is carrots and sticks, right? I will be intrinsically motivated to do something if I want to do it. So our job as leaders is how do we create an environment of intrinsic motivation? How do we build a team that wants to show up and work their hardest? I have an entire video on this to dive way deeper into it. And the great news is that everything we've covered in this video drives and supports intrinsic motivation. People will want to show up and work harder when they feel their work is meaningful, when their work is organized and not overwhelming, when they know that they're focused on the right things and that those things are important and going to make a meaningful impact, when they have a realistic and viable set of priorities that they know that they can get done and they can do an exceptional job with. All of these things support and feed intrinsic motivation. And again, you get this double whammy where your team gets more work done in fewer hours and they're more excited to do the work, so they are more likely to invest even more hours. They're going to get more done and work harder because we've implemented what I've covered in this video, as opposed to trying to fix this issue of burnout by just having them work less. So now you have a starter pack of tools to drive high levels of sustainable A-player performance without pushing yourself or your team over the edge. Now, here's the next step. How do we do this in such a way that drives and maximizes our profit? What if it was possible to double our profit without doubling the workload? This is exactly what I cover in my very next video. You can go ahead, find it right there, should be popping up on the screen. So go ahead, click that now, and we will dig even deeper into this concept of using productivity and performance to ultimately drive profit. I will see you over there.